Hi everyone, your local hipster here to talk to you about the latest Duster album. Duster, self-titled. Duster is the name of a long-running rock band that mainly deal with the sounds of indie rock. They toy in the realm of slowcore and space rock as well. You can even call their seminal 1998 debut album, Stratosphere, a little dream pop too. I think the only way I can describe Duster to get that image in a person's mind is they make music from a world that only those people exist. Really, they make music that sounds like everyone has died and we're in a post-apocalyptic world, except there isn't flames all around us, it's just silence and ash. The 1998 album Stratosphere, as well as their sophomore release Contemporary Movement, have become cult classics. And it was only time before a band like Duster, getting this underground recognition, would release another album. And I have to be honest, I've listened to Stratosphere, I've listened to Contemporary Movement. None of them have really shocked me to my core, at least moved me in a way for me to enjoy those projects. I do appreciate what the projects are doing. However, I just can't envelop myself in these sounds that they're trying to give me. It's spacey, it's dreamy, it's moody, it's ambient, it's lo-fi indie. What do you expect? And while the debut had somewhat of an ambitious runtime, it was about an hour long, a good amount of tracks on there, Contemporary Movement saw a more confined formula of this raw, slowcore sound. That's another way I can describe Duster. Their sound is very raw, lo-fi too, almost synonymous really with those labels. Contemporary Movement saw more musical passages, saw more drum beats, saw more grooves, in a sense, while still having that spacious, ambient, slowcore sound to their name. Contemporary Movement is not considered a sophomore slump, but it's not considered as good as Stratosphere. In all honesty, if I were to have to choose between Stratosphere and Contemporary Movement, I'd go for the latter, mainly because I like the more defined characteristics of that slowcore genre, at least what they are doing. And the lead singles leading up to this new self-titled album had me excited because it saw Contemporary Movement era Duster. However, I did not expect to enjoy this album, mainly because I didn't enjoy other Duster projects. I did go into this thing a little cautious, expecting to get the sounds that we've already had before. We start this album off with one of the lead singles to this album, Copernicus Center, which puts you straight into this atmosphere and it invokes you completely. At 4 minutes long, it does take its time, however, the grooves on this thing are very nice. And I'm thinking whether or not if I would have liked this as the intro to this entire album rather than a song that's just leading us into the atmosphere. It is important to note that Duster is not just a rock band or an ambient rock band or a sound band or whatnot, whatever you want to call it. Instrumental, that's the word. They incorporate vocals into these songs too. However, they're very faint, they're very quiet, they're not meant to be all that important, and that's no different on this track. And on this album specifically, you get a little more incorporation of vocals. I like that. I like vocals in my music. I don't have to hear vocals to like music necessarily. I guess it is nice to have someone speaking to you in a sense. The song I'm Lost has a very similar way of kickstarting the song with this kind of glitchy intro to it. And I would say this is the closest thing to a rock song we get on this album. It has these very distorted guitar leads along with nice drum passages. You can say the drums on this album are pretty simplistic, however, I think the strong suit of this album is not with its intricacies or its complexity, but rather its ability to maintain an atmosphere, start an atmosphere, and end an atmosphere. Duster has a way with sound, they have a way with style, they have a way with these amazing atmospheres and these amazing feelings that they can invoke in a listener. I never truly felt that feeling in Stratosphere or Contemporary Movement, but I know it's there. I think my favorite song off of this album is the track Chocolate and Mint. You get these very slow moving, very soft sound guitars, slow drum passages. It's like the tempo of this track is like 50 BPM or something. You have the lead vocalist singing over this, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's extremely important to know what the lyrics are for this album. You can get bits and pieces of what they're saying on this album. You can kind of hear sometimes what they're saying. Like on the track Go Back, it's very clear that these vocals are repeating the same phrase. Go back to the beach, go back to a hometown, go back, go back, go back. I would say my least favorite track on here, Go Back, mainly because the distorted guitar leads on this track are just a little too repetitive for my taste. However, that's not a cut I would skip in this track listing. It is very easy to dismiss this album as being slow, repetitious, almost mind-numbing in a sense. But the way I look at this album is the guitar passages are just so slow. They almost build in a way. The more drums, the more guitar effects, the more effects just added on to these songs. There's not really an apex to these tracks. It's just the atmospheres that Duster creates with these songs. Ghoulish is another highlight too, with these slow guitar passages and these slow drum passages. The vocals on Ghoulish are very prominent in a Duster sense. You can very clearly hear the angst, the turmoil, the pain that the lead vocalist is singing about. And I think this album ends off very nicely with the track The 13. And it's kind of weird because I think 13 could have started this album off very nicely, but it's also a fantastic way to end the album. And you can't just bookend an album with the same 2 tracks. So is Copernicus Crater, which I think I said center earlier, is that song the best intro that this album could have possibly had? Probably. I mean, it really introduced me to Duster as a band. Hearing new sounds and hearing a new album from Duster coming back after nearly 20 years of studio album silence. Does this album have the strong suit of a Duster album? I would say yes. Slow guitar passages, slow drums, eerie vocals, and the way Duster has an amazing feeling to these songs is, in my opinion, very unmatched. I can talk about more of the songs on here like Letting Go, Summer War, Lomo, Ghost World. However, I feel like I would be repeating myself over and over and over again because these songs have very similar feelings to other songs on this album, except the different types of guitars and the different sounds of guitars that these make. That sounds like a very rudimentary observation, but it's the best way I can describe it. And the different effects used on a lot of these guitars make such a different atmosphere for each track in the next. I almost don't want to spoil it for you. Duster has, in a sense, converted me to their side of the music realm, because it wasn't until listening to this entire album, listening with headphones downstairs making a turkey sandwich, that I realized they do this sound so well. They make an atmosphere sound crushing, menacing, depressing. You're like the last person on earth, but in a way you know you can't do anything about it, so you just kind of have to live and let live. It's very despondent, melancholic, in a way sublime, and somewhat satisfying. What Duster does with this slowcore sound is they take it to another level, and they make an atmosphere sound 10 times greater than what it is. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again, this album would have easily made it onto my 2019 year-end list, and I'm still kind of questioning whether or not I can put it on my 2020 year-end list, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I think Duster came back with a phenomenal sound and easily followed up a very high anticipation period where people were waiting for a Duster album. They announced their reunion in early 2019 and people were excited, anticipated that Duster would come back. And in my opinion, Duster did not disappoint. I really do enjoy this album, very much. So an A- is what I'm giving this album. It's a very phenomenal album, and I would recommend you check it out. That's that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next. And that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. And remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective.